Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the First World War. I'm Mike B, and today we're going to be kind of talking about a macro level subject that's going to help explain a lot of the micro stuff for the US, for the American Expeditionary Force. There's another American video, sorry about that. I guarantee you we will get to other foreign entities and subjects eventually. I just like to have props, like physical props to kind of show you while I'm explaining the certain subjects. And they're really expensive and hard to find. So if you want to see more things and see them more quickly, like more soon, you can feel free to become a supporter on Patreon. And a lot of my other YouTube videos have become demonetized, so there's not that much cash flow because I have a mean gun channel. But if you become a supporter on Patreon or donate to the channel in any other way in the description, that would really help out and offset the costs that I incur by getting these props. I like getting them, it's just going to take me a lot longer if I don't have help from other people. So that's totally up to you, but now we'll get on to the subject at hand. It's going to be just the general preparedness or lack of preparedness of the Americans in 1917 when they got involved. So after some things that happened, the Zimmerman Telegram, the Lusitania, things like that, a lot of political stuff went down, and that's a different topic we can talk about later. Was it, legitimate? Was it a hoax? Who knows? Anyway, the result was we entered the war in officially in June, I guess, of 1917. Really, April and May we were kind of declaring war. And actually, I believe war was declared in April, but we officially started sending people over there in June in larger numbers. Now, what happened was, at this point, we had a standing army of about 200,000 or so, and that's not nearly enough. I mean, that almost can be taken out in one battle in the First World War. If you read about the Battle of the Somme or Gallipoli or something like that, a lot of people died really quickly. So 200,000 for your entire standing military, not that many people. So the draft was started up, and people were volunteering too in large numbers. So essentially the entire military had to go from about 200,000 people in around April to June of 1917 to about 4 million by December of 1917, and then getting on, it stayed around 4 million people. That's a huge increase in the level of supplies, uniforms, personnel to train, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, that's just an insane jump, and it happened really quickly. So the American Expeditionary Force initially went over there just to put bodies on the front. And when they got there, the French and the British said, no, you guys are going to get your asses handed to you if you go out there like that. You have no formal training in this style of warfare. It's a lot different. This is, we've been doing this for 3.5 years at this point. We've kind of got an understanding of what to do and what not to do. So you're going to have to train for a little bit before you actually get to the front. Now, they did send some units up to the front, and the Americans held their own but got their asses handed to them big time because they were so unprepared, ill-equipped. The equipment had to be overhauled insanely fast and hopefully efficiently. So then a bunch of cuts and shortcuts were actually added to the M1912 and M1910, the M1912 uniform and the M1910 equipment, which I'll do in another video. I'll actually show you kind of what happened. They simplified a lot of production, the uniform especially. Became more streamlined and simplified, and basically the U.S. was so unprepared. There were still units that were deploying over to France in 1917 with Craig Jorgensen 1898 rifles. So we're talking like reserve troops with outdated weapons and ammunition. So what was interesting is a couple of the units that were deployed right away were ironically National Guard units. Excuse me. So the 1st Division was one of the first to go, and along with some of the Marine divisions, or battalions at that point actually. And the 2nd Division was formed, and people were sent over there because basically before the First World War, federal troops were very few and far between, okay? So what happened was the National Guard, who had just been on the border in Mexico, ironically enough, in 1916, chasing Pancho Villa around and his little group of clowns on the border, they had just been sold brand new 1903 rifles to replace their Craig Jorgensen, since they were going to a place where combat was actually a possibility on the border with Pancho Villa and his little gang. So most of those National Guard units already had 1903s that were relatively unused. They had their new equipment, they had their 1910 gear, they basically had all the supplies that most of the new draftees and the newer units wouldn't have. So the National Guard units were deployed immediately. And what happened was, when they were on the border, say, I'll just talk about Wisconsin National Guard. There's also the Iowa/Ohio/Alabama, the 42nd Division. And then, I can't remember the other division, the National Guard unit. Anyway, so they were the 32nd Division, the Red Arrow Division that it became, was number 6 in the units to be deployed. Now, they were going to go to training first and then head to France, whereas like the 1st and 2nd Divisions, they were over there pretty quickly along with the Marines to start learning and be able to get personnel trained and a little bit combat experience to train incoming units and stuff. So the 32nd, which had just been on the border in 1916 and just gotten home about 3.5, 4 months before they were deployed onto active service, was not the 32nd Division. It was the 1st and 2nd and was it 7th Volunteer Infantry units from Wisconsin, being the National Guard, right? So what happened was the federal troops, the federal army at that point said, okay, well, you are going to be federalized. And that's when they came up with all these different numbers. So like, I believe the 26th through the 45th or something divisions were National Guard divisions from different states. So they took all these 1st, 2nd, all these old units that have been around since like the Revolution, right? With just the state militia numbers, and they federalized them into like, the 1st and 2nd Wisconsin Volunteer Infantry was put into the 128th Infantry Regiment of the 32nd Division, right? And along with the 127th Infantry. And then Michigan had the 125th and 126th Regiments. So it kind of worked like that to get prepared. And since a lot of those units had all this gear, they were deployed first because they had just gotten off of active duty, or, not active duty as we say today, but federal service on the border. And they had just purchased, the states had just purchased all this new equipment. They had a little bit of training, they had discipline, combat experience, they were relatively in shape, so that's why they were sent first. Now, that being said, when the Americans got there, their equipment sucked. The 1910 equipment sucks ass. It's horrible. I'll go through an entire video about that. And the fact is, we didn't even have enough rank chevrons for NCOs to wear on their uniforms, even though a lot of them didn't because of the uniform turnover rate when we got over there. But yeah, we were not going to be issued the summer equipment, or the summer uniform. We're going to be issued the winter one because it is warmer and it is stronger. Wool is a lot stronger than cotton. So we had to really, really step up to the plate, and especially the people at home had to step up to the plate to make the AEF not totally under-equipped. They still were very, very early on, they still were, and then it started picking up speed. And in about January to February 1918, our economy at home started catching up with munitions and stuff. Also, the Allies gave us a lot of equipment, okay? The British gave us helmets and gas masks at first. The SBR is what we used primarily. And the Allies really stepped up and said, yeah, we've got all this extra equipment because we got bodies that aren't going to be using this laying on the field. So yeah, here, you can take it, brand new stuff. We made too much and we've been at it. So that's kind of how that went. When the Americans got involved, they were so ill prepared. They were not trained at all for modern warfare. The Allies had to step their game up and, get people to train them. But again, it's fresh bodies at the front. So anyway, I just kind of wanted to talk about that kind of macro issue and throw a couple micro issues in there with the preparedness or lack thereof of the United States military, but how they came to adapt and actually roll with the changes fairly efficiently. And then by 1919, when we didn't need any more stuff, we had a surplus of equipment and arms and stuff. And there's other little things that we were not prepared on, and then we're never prepared on, such as food, a little bit of the clothing, actually a lot of the clothing. I'll explain these in different videos too. I just want to keep this one kind of short because I know I've been ranting for a while. But anyway, that's kind of, if you got any questions on like the preparedness or lack thereof in 1917 of the Americans, let me know in the comments. I'll try to get your question answered. It's pretty interesting. Again, we'll go into the micro stuff later on, but I just kind of want to give you an overview of the state of the American military and then how like federalization worked with state guard or state militia units that were now National Guard, but in the federal army. So yeah, hopefully you learned something. I'm going to cut this video so I can not bore you guys for another hour. I appreciate you watching. Again, if you consider supporting the channel so we can get more props so I can teach you guys about this stuff. This is a big passion of mine. World War I and Vietnam are probably my two favorite time periods to study. and actually acquire items from, whether it be reproduction or original. So yeah, keep the ideas coming. I'll try to cover as much as possible in the comments. I'll be looking at your comments and seeing what you guys want to see videos on, and if I can make that happen, I will. But yeah, if you consider supporting me, we'll get this thing going pretty well. I want to get a bunch of different series about different conflicts done, because I see them done and I'm not really happy with the way they're being presented. It's really overproduced and not personal. It just feels like kind of a corporation spitting out information or somebody using infographics. And I want to show you the real deal. So anyway, I appreciate you watching. Thanks so much. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. That'd be really great. And give this video a thumbs up. I'll see you on the next episode, guys. Thanks again.